Hello and welcome to the No Splinters YouTube page. My name's Harry Lister, and this is it. Yeah, this is the channel. It's our first video, first Premier League review of the weekend. Lockdown's here, so why not take advantage and start spreading some thoughts on the football from this weekend. Yes, obviously hit the subscribe button and like button if you're watching. Please give us a like or a comment if there's anything you agree with, disagree with. Get involved and obviously check out our different pages. I think it's all here. But let's get straight into it. Straight into the City Liverpool game, the biggest game in the Premier League at the moment. Sort of the famous sort of football match, I think, that in terms of quality that the Premier League can offer. You look at obviously the United versus Arsenal game that used to happen back in the early 2000s, and then maybe even United Chelsea in the latter part of the 21st century. The start of the 21st century. I think this is the game of the Premier League now. I think the quality in that first half yesterday just showed exactly sort of the reason why these two sides are always the two favourites, or have been for the last 3 or 4 years, and why in terms of European glory they're always top of the tree for the bookies. I thought Liverpool dominated that first half. Brilliant performance from the front four, especially sort of the first 25-30 minutes, really controlled the game, came out with something that I don't think many of us were expecting, and really took it to that Man City defence, obviously, who maybe Aguero and Fernandinho shy of their full strength side. And then, obviously Man City came back well. Kevin De Bruyne missed a penalty. Apparently the first penalty in the Premier League since Mahrez that hasn't been on target, which I find hard to believe. And both of them have come against Liverpool. And that's not just for City, I think that's for anyone. So, interesting stats. Obviously, didn't expect that from Kevin De Bruyne to put it wide, but yeah, I thought 1-1 on the whole represented a fair representation of the game. I thought Man City controlled the second half well. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus' turn, whether it was on purpose or not, was a real stroke of it was a masterpiece, really, in terms of a bit of brilliance. In the box, obviously, definite penalty from Mane. I think the Gomez one, I mean, we'll probably talk about the Leicester Wolves penalty shortly, but for me, if that's a penalty, I think everyone's saying the game's gone, and I think that's an easy term to use, but I think it sort of really shows the position that the football's in at the moment in terms of the way that VAR is controlling the game. I personally was a big activist for VAR. I thought it would help improve the game. I thought you look at sort of offside decisions, it would make it more clear and obvious, and really get rid of the bad errors. But what it seems to be doing is making things that would never have been given fouls or never been given offsides, never have turning things that wouldn't have been even looked at, even analysed after a game, saying, is this or isn't it? I think it's turned them into big contentious talking points, and they're sort of going in the way of either going in the way of the attacking side too far, or obviously taking away clear-cut goals, like, for instance, the Mane one and the Bamford one from the weekend. So yeah, putting that aside, I thought it was a decent enough game. Liverpool seemed to control it in the first 30 minutes, and then it was Man City's game from there on in. Draw probably represented a fair result for both sides. You look at it and just think, I can't see the winner of the Premier League coming from either of anyone who finishes above these two sides will win the league, and I don't personally think it'll be anyone. I think Chelsea have got obviously an outside shout second. I say an outside chance. I think Chelsea will come second, to be fair. I think they'll pick Man City to second, Man City third. But I think if anyone finishes above Liverpool or Man City, they will be the Premier League winner. I can't see neither of these sides winning the league. For me, I think Liverpool were clear favourites. You look at, they've had sort of some defining results. You look at the way their season's gone, other than the defeat to Aston Villa, which was obviously a shambles, and no one can sort of put their finger on why that happened. But you ignore the Villa result. You look at the massive victory away from home against Chelsea. They've beaten Arsenal at home. They've drawn away at Everton when they probably deserved all 3 points. And against Manchester City, they obviously got a point away from home this season. You compare and contrast it to the last season when they picked up 99 points. And you got to think, well, they went to the Etihad and they lost. I know it was after they'd already won the league, so they've gained a point there. They went to Goodison Park and drew, so that's matched it. They obviously went to Aston Villa and they snatched a late victory from the draws of defeat. So far, the only difference is 3-point swing at the Aston Villa game, and obviously they've gained a point from the Etihad. So they're 2 points down on the results they had last year, and I think that's a fair representation of sort of where Liverpool would expect to be. I think the amount of points they've amassed so far is sort of nailed on as to what they'd have anticipated, and I just think they're the absolute odds-on favourite in my eyes. I think they should be the favourites. Obviously, the Van Dijk injury is a massive loss for them, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference that they're going to drop 20 points or whatever from last year. I still see Liverpool coming in the 90-point region, and I can't really see anybody else reaching 80 points. I mean, obviously Manchester City, if they get their act together, could do it. Gabriel Jesus, great goal aside, at the weekend, isn't the player that Sergio Aguero was 3 years. Now, Aguero isn't the player that he was 3 years ago either. And I just don't think Manchester City have got it in their locker to go on and win the Premier League. You look at their results in the last five games, and I think they've only scored 5 goals. They've only scored 5 goals in the last 5 games, which is sort of telling of a Man City side who, even last season, were free-flowing, free-scoring. You look at the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, he's massively off his game. The penalty miss aside, there was a lot of sloppy errors for him yesterday. Even in the England game, he was sort of marked out of the game. I know he gave the assist for Jesus, but that was pretty much all Gabby Jesus' goal. And you just got to think, I don't see Man City sort of improving to the level that Liverpool will expect to play at. I think Anfield's become a fortress. You look at, I think it's 63 games unbeaten at Anfield for Liverpool. The next side's on about 3 or 4 in the Premier League. So you've got a record like that at home, whereas in comparison to every other side, they don't sort of have that control and they don't have the fortresses of their home ground. I just can't see anybody surpassing Liverpool this season. But, it was a good game, quality, the best game in the Premier League, and sort of the first 50 minutes showed why it's these two are the premier sides of the Premier League, and long may it continue. Moving on to the first game of the weekend was Everton versus United. He does it just enough, doesn't he, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Needing a victory, or needing a result at least this weekend to sort of keep the Wolves from his door. Manchester United, they go 1 goal behind, and you think, this is it. Ollie's on his way out, and Manchester United may be a force in the future with a good manager coming through the doors. And it's sort of that worrying moment that I think all fans thought, Jesus, Ollie goes, and the way that Manchester United is set up, they could really look to compete in the next few years. But no, thankfully for the rest of us, Manchester United won, and Ollie stays, and the threat of Manchester United is no longer. For at least another 6 months or so, Manchester United will be with the PE teacher, the PE teaching coach, who will obviously lead them to underachieve once again this season. You look at sort of where they're at in the table. I think they're still 11th. Where are they? They're 14th with 10 points after 7 games. Obviously, they have a game in hand, which would take them up to sort of around 8th, 9th, 10th. But yeah, Leeds, Manchester United, just sort of Bruno Fernandes, quality player. You've got to look at sort of the impact he had on the game at the weekend, and obviously 2 goals. A lot of discussions, Rodriguez or Bruno Fernandes. I think there are levels to this game, and Bruno's in a different league to Rodriguez. Manchester United showed they've got a good side. They obviously turn up when they need to, just do enough, as I say. But Everton were a shambles. They were really poor. You look at the hype train that's been burst. The bubble's been burst from the first 4 weeks of the season. I think they were 12 points after 4 games, and obviously Ancelotti, who I do rate, was the best manager in the league, and Everton had the best side going. And since then, 1 in 4, I think, 1 point in 4, and that was a lucky VAR decision at home to Liverpool. Defeats to United and Southampton, I think maybe Newcastle, really show that Everton, the discussion of top 4 was very premature, and we all sort of got bought into the hype of an on-form Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Rodriguez, and Alan, Richarlison, and the depth of the Everton squad just isn't there. I think to compete at the top level of the Premier League, you need a decent amount of depth, and it's something that Everton definitely don't have. As much as they've got a good manager, they don't have the depth, and hopefully for the Premier League, that'll be something they'll look to strengthen in January. When market opens in about 10 weeks' time. But, Manchester United deserved winners, and you just sort of writing was on the wall, really, wasn't it? You just, as soon as they need a result, they'll bring one. And to be fair, away from home, they've been doing all right, but long may the Ollie reign continue. The biggest shock of the weekend, you've got to look to the biggest shocks of the weekend. I think it's got to be Aston Villa at Arsenal. Now, can we say it's a shock with Aston Villa now? They've obviously had a blip the last few games, got trampled away at Southampton, who are obviously on fire, but Arsenal 3-0 at home to Aston Villa. You just look at Arsenal and you look at sort of what they've been doing this year, and I know they'd lost in a tight game to Leicester, but they'd gone away to Old Trafford and they'd sort of set up exactly how Arteta wanted them to, and they managed to pull off a decent enough, not performance, but a victory, a result. They'd broken that curse. I think it was 14 years in the waiting or something to get a victory at Old Trafford in the league, and they follow it up with a poor performance and result against an Aston Villa side who are a strong side. I mean, at the start of the season, I thought before they'd signed the likes of Barkley, Martinez and Watkins, I thought Grealish would go and they'd be in real trouble, but the signature of Grealish seemed to sort of attract high calibre quality of players. You look at sort of the impact that Ollie Watkins has had on that side, a brace yesterday, a hat-trick against Liverpool. Sort of the two biggest sides Aston Villa really played. He's sort of turned up and put in big performances, and he looks a real bright spark for the Premier League, a real bright spark for the future of another English striker who's performing. And Aston Villa, were magnificent. Obviously, they had that goal ruled out early doors of another VAR decision, which was probably just about right. I mean, there's obviously a lot of discussion to be had around VAR, but whether it was or wasn't didn't really impact the game, which was good to see. Obviously, Aston Villa just a blitz in the second half and put Arsenal to the sword, and it's sort of real. Don't want to go too far on these things, but obviously Mikel Arteta, real thoughts. He needs to look at himself and think he's lost at home to Leicester and Aston Villa now, two sort of games. If you're going to want to challenge for that top 4 spot, you need to be winning. And Arsenal, obviously, that's got to be their aim this season. I think you look at the signings they've made, obviously Partey, Pepe, the season before last. There just needs to be a lack of creative spark. If only they had one of the most prolific assist makers in the world, really, in their squad, or not even in their squad, on their books. If only they could find someone like that. Mesut Ozil. But yeah, moving on from the Aston Villa Arsenal game, obviously it was a great performance from Villa, and another Midland side on absolute fire at Leicester. What Brendan Rodgers is doing at the King Power is magnificent. Obviously, they blipped last year. They had a lot of injuries. You look at the way they were. I think it was in about February. They were 12, maybe 14 points clear of fifth. And it was at one point it was a 3-horse race. Not that I think anyone believed that. But yeah, they absolutely fell away at the end of last year, and obviously they lost that critical game to Manchester United in the last game of the season, which would have put them into the Champions League spots. But they're on fire in the Europa League, and they're on fire in the Premier League. I think they're top of the league now. They're a point clear of Tottenham and Liverpool, 18 points. And it's so close up there. Don't get me wrong, it's so close. But they keep grinding out results. Obviously, 1-0 wins here and there. They blitzed Leeds on last Monday night. A 1-0 win against Wolves, a 1-0 win against Arsenal, and next weekend is a massive game at the top of the table. Leicester go away to Anfield to sort of first versus second or third. And if Leicester can get something from that game, you've got to really look at them as title contenders once again. It's not the Leicester side that won the league 4 years ago. It's a much better side. It's a much better squad. Whether their starting 11 you can compare with like the likes of Mahrez and Kante is up for debate, but they've got some real quality players in their lineup. Obviously, Jamie Vardy, who missed a penalty but obviously scored a penalty, is one of the best strikers in the league, undoubtedly. James Maddison and Pratt look decent enough behind him, and some of the players they've got there, obviously, like Tielemans, and I think, who's the new lad? Is it Mendy, I think, who's sort of looking decent enough for Leicester. And yeah, Wolves are a good side, and obviously to beat them at home 1-0, you take that all day for Leicester, and Wolves sort of challenging for the top 7 once again. It'd be interesting to see where they end up, but a decent enough performance and sort of another exciting, maybe fairy tale for Leicester this season, and who knows if they can win the league. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers came close to the Liverpool side back in 2014. He's a great manager, and I think this is the season for him. If they can do a great job at Leicester, I think you look at the end of the season, there might be some opportunities at Manchester City. And for me, I think Brendan Rodgers is the heir to that sort of throne at Man City if he has a good performance this season. I think I can't really see anyone else they get in, and obviously I think Man City need a long-term project, and Rodgers has learnt his learnt his trade at Swansea. Obviously, went to Liverpool, did a good job, and then fell away. Another massive club in Celtic, gone to Leicester to rebuild. Sort of Leicester, I say rebuild. Obviously, they're not expected to be in Europe, but to sort of take a club that has the potential to enter that top 4 battle, which he seems to be doing very well. And yeah, I think Leicester is a stepping stone club for the likes of Rodgers, and I think he's going to be anticipating. There's only really Manchester City, Manchester United, Spurs maybe that he'll be looking towards, thinking they're sort of the next job for me. And I think he'll get it. I really do. Obviously, another contender for the title, Chelsea, went 1-0 down at Sheffield against Sheffield United and then blew them apart. Later on in the game, obviously came back in the second half, 2-1 up at half time, and then 2 late goals from Silva and Werner put Sheffield United to the sword, who are in massive trouble. Ryan Brewster just doesn't look anywhere near the quality of a lower Premier League team, a lower Premier League striker, sort of the player, a £25 million player to keep them up. I just don't see he's going to be that player. He's got no experience, and he just sort of. It's a bit harsh to write him off. I'm not doing that at all, but he looks like a bit of a rabbit in the headlights in the Premier League at the moment. He's not the player he's not a 25 million player. You look at the likes of a Callum Wilson, and even an Ollie Watkins. These are sort of proven. I know Ollie Watkins was in the Championship, but these were proven goal scorers. Everyone was confident of their abilities. Obviously, Callum Wilson's done it in the Premier League. I know he took a side down, but it wasn't sort of his fault. And I just think to spend that much money on a striker who is in the unknown category with a lot of upside potential is sort of a gamble from a club who need to stay up. It's not a club who are sort of mid-table mediocrity like a Crystal Palace maybe, or not so much Southampton. They're better than that. But these sort of sides who it's not as much of a gamble. It's not make or break. They don't need the striker to score 10, 15, 20 goals in the campaign to keep them up. Whereas I think Ryan Brewster, the expectation is he's going to have to score 15 goals this season and keep Sheffield United up, which I think is a tall ask for a young lad. But Chelsea looking the real deal for me. I think they're a good side. I think some really good additions who are going to get fit. They're going to fit together better as the season goes on. Frank Lampard, comes under a lot of criticism as a manager. For me, I think he's doing an all right job. I think he hasn't really put a foot wrong in the Chelsea situation. I just think the likes of Ben Chilwell, Werner, Silva adds a bit of experience. Ziyech looked brilliant at the weekend, really, really good. Mason Mount looks nice alongside Kante in a bit of a deeper role. And obviously Havertz didn't play. For me, I don't think Havertz is the player that everyone thinks he may well become, but at the moment he's not. He's not a player that Chelsea is sort of going to rely upon this season, I think. But the likes of Werner, Ziyech and the like are strong additions, and I think Chelsea are only going to get stronger. And I think next year with the right, so obviously Eduardo Mendy in goal has sorted them out as well. And I think next year they're real contenders. For me, this year, a solid top 4 spot will be a good achievement for Chelsea to cement their position and go on. But you never know the way the Premier League's been this year, because could be up for anybody. Just outside Leicester at top of the table is Spurs. Spurs. Harry Kane obviously scored the winner late on against a terrible West Brom side. At the end of the day, you've got to be winning those games, and they did win the game, so it's sort of neither here nor there. The game, the highlights, they seem poor, sluggish, a bit boring. Obviously, it was on Box Office, which is another shambles. I'm not paying £15 to watch West Brom. I mean, they could be playing Liverpool. I don't think I'd still pay to watch West Brom. Got much better things to do than watch what is, in my opinion, probably the worst side that the Premier League has witnessed in the last 5 years. I just think boring, bland and uninspiring. And yeah, good riddance to West Brom. Shame Brentford didn't come up with sort of the players that they had, even though those lads have appeared in the Premier League, be it for West Ham now and West Ham and Villa. So obviously Spurs 1-0 victory. Obviously a Harry Kane late goal. Fair play, another goal from Harry Kane. On fire this season, one of the top goal scorers in the league and the top lead, the most assists. Really is sort of worthy of the title of, I think after Lewandowski, the best striker in the world. And somebody that I think England need to build the side around. I think it doesn't really matter who plays for me in that attacking 2-3, whatever it is. The formation and the side should sit around Harry Kane. He should be the focal point. And we should sort of build a side around him. Obviously, there's been a lot of fitting in over the years and in the England squads and the England sides. And I just think Harry Kane's the man that, if we're going to win a World Cup, I think Harry Kane will be the man that leads us to it. Not in terms of captaincy, because I think that's nonsense. It should be Jordan Henderson. But Harry Kane's going to be that focal point of the attack, and be it Sancho and Sterling, or Sancho Rashford, however it works, I think whoever plays off him, it should be for Harry Kane's benefit, not for anyone else's. Shouldn't try and fit in players around it, but that's for another chat. But yeah, no. So Spurs are up to second, and obviously top 4 positions on. If it's not going to be Liverpool, I'd hope it is Spurs, because I just think for Mourinho to win another Premier League title with a smaller club would be unbelievable. Obviously, I think we've all watched the Amazon documentary. If you haven't, give it a watch. Mourinho is obviously just a brilliant character for the game, and somebody that adds so much to the Premier League. And for me, I think after Southgate's done an England job, probably next summer, maybe in 2022, I think Mourinho, if he wins that title at Spurs, seals off his sort of club management career. I think he's loved so much by the British and the English public, that the England job would be ready made for him, and he could offer his intensity and sort of his wisdom to the national side. And I think we'd all get behind that. Moving on from obviously a good result for Spurs, was a brilliant result for Crystal Palace at home against Leeds. Palace battered Leeds, obviously easy, I think is the pun going around at the moment. But the Bamford offside was just a shambles. You look at the way that VAR is going at the moment, and it's just it's a joke, really, isn't it? You look at the way that the Mane decision had gone. You look at some of the handballs that have been given. I forgot to even mention it in the Leicester game. That handball that was. So it's just ruining the game, and the Bamford decision is nonsense. I mean, all he's doing is putting his arm in front to sort of let the player know where he wants the ball. He's about a foot behind the back foot of the defender. He's gaining no advantage. It's just ruining the game. Obviously, I think that would have been for 1-1. They went 2-0 down. Bamford scored again, who's obviously is on fire, which is a surprise to us all. But it's just a really poor to see. I think it's not something fans want. I don't think the Palace fans think it's the right decision. I don't think Leeds fans think it's the right decision. I don't think football fans think it's the right decision. I don't even think VAR think it's the right decision. But it's sort of the way that the game's going, and it's not something that I want to see. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's enjoyable. At the end of the day, we want right decisions, but we want correct decisions. We don't want football to be taken out of our hands and sort of just become this thing that's just controlled by robots, really, and sort of everything gets broken down. I mean, you look at it, where is the consistency in terms of, it's not, Jordan Pickford goes through a man and ends a player's career. I say a player's season, potentially ends a player's career. He gets nothing for it. VAR's not interested in the safety of the players. Don't worry about that. No problem. He's done it obviously against Harry Maguire, blah, blah, blah. The safety of an individual doesn't seem to be taken into account. What seems to be important is that a goal? Isn't it a goal? Let's change the outcome of this game in terms of the only thing that technically will change the outcome of the game, yes or no, for goals. A player gets red carded or dangerous tackles, it might not change the outcome of the game. Who knows? Obviously, it lends its hand. History says it will, but it's just unacceptable for me. And I think if VAR is going to remain, I think there's got to be real changes that happen to it. And then just recapping Brighton Burnley 0-0. Enough said on that one. Southampton 2-0 at home to Newcastle on the Friday night, late kick-off. Great for Southampton. You look at what Hassan Hüttel's doing there is excellent. I think he's a really good manager. I think if a Brendan Rodgers goes to City, I think Southampton to Leicester is a step up. I think it's a monumental step up. It's the next tier. It bridges the gap between a mid-table club to a Europa League club and an outsider for top 4 to a Champions League side. I think Leicester is that just on the outside, and Southampton's sort of a mid-table. And I think that he's sort of putting he's putting his name in the hat for even bigger jobs. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's on for a move away from Southampton, and they were top of the league and getting T-shirts printed at one point, which is sad to see from a club that I fairly respect. But each to their own. And then to finish off the weekend, West Ham versus Fulham, 1-0 to West Ham. Another good result for the Hammers very late on. And I think the talking point, the head loss of the week, has to be Ademola Lookman's Panenka penalty. What the fuck is he doing? Simple terms. I've never seen anything as bad. I mean, he's going off the pitch crying, for goodness sake. getting consoled by his teammates. Maybe if you had that determination and that desire to win the game, you'd have put your foot through it and scored the goal to give yourself a point, which is going to be needed for Fulham. I mean, if they go down by 1 point, there's no one else to look at. It's just a ridiculous penalty. It's a shocking thought process to. I don't know what's going through his head in that moment. You look at it last minute. It's the last kick of the game. It's an arrogance thing. I mean, you see it a lot from high quality players, and it sort of when it works well. But when you're a bottom of the table side and you're a nobody club, like Fulham are, to have the arrogance and the ignorance even to just try and do something like that. Basically, you want the clip to go around social media. Look at what this did, and yeah, if he pulls it off, it does go viral. Everyone sees, oh look man, look what he's done. But when it comes off as bad as that, you deserve all the flack you get. I mean, he deserves all the criticism. It's just an appalling decision. And for me, Scott Parker's got to be having strong words and really sit him down and have a hard look at him. But as I say, a late goal for West Ham, 3 points, and they look in a decent enough side. Obviously, decent performances at Liverpool and to Man City. And yeah, fair play the Hammers. So obviously that ends this week's review and the first review of it. Obviously, it's a first for me. So let us know in the comments how it goes. Give us a like and subscribe, as I say. Check out our different pages. Over the coming weeks, we're going to be dropping different content: football, rugby, cricket, boxing, whatever else. Have a few people to chat to, hopefully, on Zoom with the lockdown. A lot of analysis from myself, and be dropping some content videos that I'm going to be editing. But yeah, give us a like and subscribe, and check out our next video soon. Thank you.